unmuted.
We ready?
Mhm.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting of the Regional Wastewater Reclamation Advisory Committee to order on Thursday, April 23rd, 2026. And we'll start with a roll call.
Good morning. All right, Alejandro Frejo Arce. Anne Marie is not on yet. Katlo Shippick, Claire Zucker,
Here.
Craig Canizaro, Eric Sulwald, Kirsten Wainsvik,
Here.
Matt Mathewson. Matt, I see you. Wave your hand.
I don't know if you can hear.
Matt, can you hear me?
No, it's not listening.
Okay, I don't think he can hear us, but he is here. Rebecca Perez.
Here.
Oh, thank you. Scott Oldendorf,
Here.
Sheila Bowen,
Here.
and Steve Foley.
Here.
Bless you.
Thank you.
All right, let's try.
Steve, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, so it's just Matt who doesn't seem to be able to hear us just yet.
Should we
No.
text him or
Hold on.
chat with him?
I will in the chat.
Wave at him vigorously.
Well, he's not looking, so.
Yeah.
Here.
Let's see.
We'll all put our hands up and wave.
Let's see, let's go. Hello, hello.
Can you hear?
Here,
Oh, I gotta
maybe
get
it's
from
gotta be
that
right
side.
here.
There we go. Let's see, I'll come over here, but.
I'm not seeing anything. Okay, there you go. Matt,
He's looking.
okay, check your. So he is checking his stuff, so let's go ahead. So we
Oh,
have,
he's good. All right.
all right, good. All right, we
Excellent.
have a quorum.
We have more than a quorum.
Unorganized beginning, but it's the rest of the meeting is going to go like just perfect. All right, so virtual meeting reminders, please mute your microphones or unmute your speaker. This will help ensure there's no feedback or background noises that may interfere with the speaker. If the committee member would like to speak or ask a question, please use the raise your hand feature. Remember to lower your hand once your question's been answered or you have finished speaking. When you're ready to speak, please unmute your microphone, especially important during votes, and then mute your microphone after that. And as a reminder, the audience members are only permitted to speak during the call to the audience unless called upon by the committee. This meeting is being recorded to satisfy the open meeting law requirements. We will move on to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was a pretty good one. We were like.
Yeah, we were
8-9.
synced.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I tried to have more authority this time. All right, so call the audience. Do we have any audience members that would like to say anything? Hearing none, we'll move on. The safety share. Who has a safety share?
Well, I'll just say safety share, just watch out for all the traffic signs because there is a lot of construction out there and it changes all the time. So just be careful of it. And yet they're still in school, but pretty soon we're not going to have school buses to worry about. But still, you got to be very cautious.
Thank you, son.
Any other safety shares?
Just, we've had some early warm weather and the snakes are being spotted in our work site and many people have seen them at their homes. So we did one on hand placement safety because you're always picking things up. So you never know what critters are lurking behind the box or rock or whatever you're moving. So just be careful where you place your hands and watch out for snakes and other critters this time of year.
Thank you.
Say, Jackson, I still go around the trees off the walkway now. Thank you.
We'll have to show that one as like our screensaver, the
Yeah.
rattlesnake in the tree.
I think it's on the front, presentation screen at the front reception
Yeah, we
desk.
could do that. It's not there.
All right. Any other safety shares? All right, we'll move on. To approval of the minutes. Everybody have a chance to look at the minutes?
I've already received 2 corrections. Kirsten's name, is missing an E, and it is CIP subcommittee chair that needed to be replaced. So those have already been gotten. Anybody else?
Any other comments on the minutes? Great job as always.
Thank you. And thank you all for your feedback, Matt. Thank you again.
All right,
I'll move to accept the minutes as corrected.
great. Do we have a second?
I second.
2 seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Now we'll move on to the director's update, discussion and action.
All right, thank you, Claire,
Yes.
and good morning, everyone, and we have a pretty full house. So I'll just take that opportunity to just tell you how much we appreciate and thank each one of you for your time and investment and being on this committee. It's very helpful to have this group interact with us, so I just wanted to thank you in person at this moment, because we do have almost all members here. And for my discussion today, I'm just going to focus on a couple other safety items and important and interesting information, but I just that's all I'm going to focus on. So the first one is here at the Tres Rios facility. As you all know, it's been about 5 years. We've been running a biogas cleaning facility. We take our dirty digester gas and we clean it to almost pure methane, very high quality methane that gets injected into the Southwest gas pipeline. And we've had really good revenue as a result of selling that renewable resource. In fact, I think we've seen a few 2 or 3 years, we've been at or almost at $5 million worth of revenue, which is a nice contribution to our revenues. And here, I lose track of time, but I think it's been close to a year ago. We had a mishap at the biogas system. While the plant was down for maintenance, we purged the system with nitrogen to make it safe to do our work. And there was an old part of the system, not part of the new gas system, but part of the digester system that when nitrogen was being purged in there, it had a valve that wasn't closed, that maybe should have been closed, or vice versa. And it built up pressure on like a flame arrestor cast iron pot that was in the system. And because of the pressure, it's actually a low pressure application, but that higher nitrogen pressure caused that pot to explode. That was an old incident. And because of that, it just made us take the system down, and we went from head to toe, top to bottom, checking everything, reevaluating. We're doing refresher training to our staff, and we've been running again. It was back online. And here just recently, a few weeks ago, we had another mishap at that facility. Again, when it was down, one of the cleaning processes in the gas system is, we call it the ferrosorp. And ferrosorp is 2 tall cylindrical tanks that are full of an iron media. It's actually like the consistency of sand, but it's a clay type material that's impregnated with iron. And what you do is that iron is in the form of an iron oxide. And when you take the dirty gas through that system, it takes the hydrogen sulfide, it loads the sulfide out of it removes hydrogen sulfide. It makes water and it removes the sulfide onto the iron. And then you sparge or trickle some oxygen back in that vessel, and the iron sulfide goes back to rust, to iron oxide, with the addition of the oxygen. And it just continues on. It's a pretty simple process, so just a normal chemical reaction. But during a recent maintenance shutdown, or not a maintenance shutdown, there was a gas analysis piece of equipment that was acting up. So the night shift shut the system down. So no gas was flowing through the system, but at the bottom of the ferro sort tank, there's two of them, but the one where the oxygen comes in and it travels from one to the next. The oxygen valve, initially got shut off, but, we're still going through the process to see why it came back open. But it may have had something to do with an operator resetting the alarm or something, but we're still evaluating that. But nonetheless, while that vessel was down, oxygen that regenerates the media that's within that vessel continued to go in. And when you take the iron sulfide material and convert it back to iron oxide with air or oxygen, it is exothermic. It gives off a lot of heat in that reaction. And so there was no new gas going in there, but there's some residual gas at the very bottom of the tank because the media takes up most of the space, but there is a gap at the bottom. And so that media just kept getting hotter and hotter and hotter with the oxygen continuing to convert iron sulfide back to iron oxide. And with that heat, it caused that residual gas at the bottom to basically ignite, and you had combustion pressure, and it blew the manhole cover down at the bottom of the vessel off. And all the media, almost all of the media in the tank, because it's like a fan, it came out that door, and nobody was hurt. But because of the pretty intense heat and that combustion that took place at the bottom of the tank was damaged, so we're gonna replace the tank. But once again, we've shut down and we're gonna go back through everything. We do have a lawsuit pending against the contractor that we hired to do the design build on that gas project. And one of the reasons we have a lawsuit is because they haven't turned over everything at the completion of the project. And some of that is SCADA and process control information. And so we think that could have also played a role, but we're still doing follow through investigation. But at the current time, the gas plant's down.
Wow.
For the second time, nobody was hurt, but those are serious near misses and property damages. So we'll get it back up at the appropriate time when we're comfortable that it's ready to go. And we'll continue with other things, but I just thought you would like to know that. So that's one. The second one on a safety thing of interest, at least to me, it's very interesting. But we've had a number of recent incidents with, first off, over at our Roger Road site, that's next door here to where we're meeting in person. The old water reclamation facility has been shut down now since like 2012, 2013. And we always are looking at what to do with that property. We have a number of things that are going on, and I think we have a presentation today on some of that. But we have a lot of break-ins over there. People are cutting the fence and going in and trying to find something of value, of which there really isn't much value. But people are breaking into vaults and buildings and trying to pull, wiring and sell the proper value of the scrap wire. But I was over there just yesterday to look at some of the fence cuts, of which there's many. And in fact, some of them are so large, they're driving vehicles through the fence when they cut it and pull it apart. Because sometimes the copper wire can get heavy and you can't just carry it unless you have a vehicle. So, those are like professional thieves in my mind that have the tools and the wherewithal to go do it. And so sometimes, we've been rounding up, remnants of people and what they leave behind and stuff. But, we have to continually go back and repair the fence, and, that costs money, and it just seems as fast as you repair it, there was a new cut in the system. So, we're evaluating what to do there. We don't have much of a presence there, but we do lease 2 small sections of that 40+ acres over there. One is for one of our job contractors. They're on a corner of that property where they stage their equipment and do work on our conveyance system. And another one is the Tucson Bird Alliance. They're actually just moving into that site to store some of their stuff, and they do a lot of invasive plant projects and whatnot across the community, but some for the county. So both those firms are there. The Tucson Bird Alliance is almost there, but they were out working here when I was there yesterday, trying to get their little parking area set up. Well, we have a gentleman, we don't have any of it's not an operating facility, it's abandoned, and, we've had break into buildings and sometimes doesn't even look like they took anything. It just looks like they messed everything up, just destroyed stuff, broke windows, broke doors, vandalism type stuff. But we have a gentleman and sometimes two that go over there just to check to see if there's any new fence cuts, and if they catch anybody in there, they run them off. And one gentleman that was there, actually, they were both there the other morning here a week or so ago. And as they were looking around down some stairs that go to an underground tunnel of a vault of equipment, there was somebody sleeping down there. And so when they were walking around, they left their cell phones in the truck. So one of them went back to get the cell phone to, just call 911 and help get somebody escorted off the private property. And while the other person was gone, the person procuring the conversation or whatever woke up and came, being startled or whatever. He came charging out of the tunnel and stairs and sprayed our employee with pepper spray and then proceeded to run away. That same individual that was sprayed with pepper spray, it was probably over a year ago, was also out there one time. And, we say he was shot at. He wasn't personally shot at, but he encountered two people in there with a vehicle trying to use machinery to cut things out and, take things and, do no good. And when he encountered them, he told them that, hey, yelling at him, and one of those two people pulled a gun out on him, and they wanted just to get out of there, and he wanted to get out of there, obviously. And in the process of them backpedaling out of there, the two bad guys, they just kept their eye on him and, initially had the gun pointed at him, but as they were walking backwards to their vehicle that wasn't too far away, going through uneven terrain, they weren't aiming at him anymore, but the guy stumbled walking backwards and not really watching where he was going. And in that process of tripping, the gun went off. We don't know what direction. The employee didn't think it was in his direction, but he was not happy nonetheless. Had to go home and do laundry and a few other things, but nonetheless, that happened again, and we're just surprised at how many people keep showing up at Roger Road. We contacted the sheriff and the police department to come in anytime, bring their dogs, do training, come in at night. We do have Securitas, the county security agency, that does, I think, 2 drive-bys. They go through there real quick in a vehicle at night, and it's just, we're spending money. And again, we're protecting something that isn't really of value to us, but I look at the amount of work and trouble somebody had to do to go in to take copper wiring, and I think they could probably have a lot easier life just going to work at McDonald's or something. I'm just saying, it's like amazing that I can't imagine it's lucrative to do that. And they left a bunch of wire that they pulled. I guess they got interrupted, and it was just like telephone wires, real small gauge wire. And it was a lot of, plastic casing or, insulation around the wire, but it wasn't much copper value. So I can't imagine all the work they went through to get that type of wire. But nonetheless, I'm just sharing that. And then here also very recently, we had another employee, not at Roger Road, but they were out at one of our odor control sites where we introduced chemicals, odor type prevention or elimination chemicals into our conveyance system. And they were preparing to do some additional landscaping around the odor site. And in the process, there was a couple of small trees that were in the way for us to do the landscaping work and the riprap and rock work. And when he was there with a chainsaw running and cutting the 2 small trees down to make room for the effort, somebody came up out of the wash and tried to grab his chainsaw while he was using it. And so he was startled, and he turned around, and the guy was kind of threatening and telling him this was his turf and we had to leave and all that stuff. And, acted like he was going to be aggressive. But I thought, that's sure crazy to go after somebody with a live chainsaw. But he finally left, and the police did pick him up a little while later. They found him and stuff. But we've just had a lot more encounters in recent times. Of course, Roger Road being a central hub of stuff for, my common sense thought is for no reason at all, real no benefit. But, we'll be talking more about what we're going to do there at Roger Road. But just those type of encounters, we've had some in history, but it just seems we're having more of them right now. So I just thought I'd share. That's the excitement for the week. I do have one other item. I forgot that Sheila Bowen is here for the first time again. First time as a new member, but Sheila used to be here a long time ago. I can't even remember how long ago. But Sheila joins us from Tucson Water, and I didn't even look. Who are you representing? Oh, AZ Water. Okay.
But Metro Water.
Oh, what did I say?
Tucson.
Tucson Water.
Oh, I'm so
Metro.
sorry. Just kidding,
Horrible
Pat, just
mistake.
kidding. Metro Water, I know that, but when you get old, your brain just says things, you know? But welcome aboard, and we're glad to have you. That's all I got.
All right.
Thank you, Jackson.
All right, so we are going to have a little bit of a turnaround, but first we're gonna do, I'm just saying, we're gonna put the Citizen Water Advisory, sorry, the Financial Subcommittee before the financial update, just to give you a heads up. All right, so we'll move on to number 2, which is the county legislative agenda. And we have Carmine here.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me
Good
okay?
morning. Yes.
Yes.
All right, awesome. Let me share my screen. That's not what I want you to see. You all able to see the presentation slides?
Not yet.
No,
Are we pulling them up or are you sharing, Carmine?
I was gonna share them. Let me try it this way. How about now?
There,
You
yeah,
can see it.
we got it.
All right, awesome. Well, good. Nice to see you all virtually. This is the annual legislative update, so happy to give you some of the details. And I consult with Michael Rossi. Michael Rossi, many of you know, is the county's legislative lobbyist. Michael spends a lot of time at the state legislature during this time of year. He also has a team of folks that are back in Washington, D.C. that assist us with our federal lobbying efforts. So really, I'm going to focus on the state and just cover sort of the same content that I've presented to you all in the past. So just starting out, the 26 Pima County legislative priorities, no surprise here. These are identical to the prior years, and these have really formed the foundation of the county's legislative agenda. So in the spring, the county administrator seeks input from departments and others in the county to frame out what the proposed legislative agenda is. That gets brought to the Board of Supervisors. The board then adopts the legislative agenda. We provide that to the County Supervisors Association, spend a lot of time interacting with them. They are a great advocacy group at the state level. And so we have a super relationship with them. The items that are listed here again are pretty similar to what we've had previously, right? Protecting Pima County taxpayers. That's mostly playing defense, right? Making sure that we're not getting additional unfunded mandates handed down to us from the state. Invest in Pima County's infrastructure. Obviously, a lot of infrastructure in the transportation world, wastewater, flood control, and other areas of the county. And we're always looking for opportunities to go ahead and bolster the funding that we receive, or strengthen authorities, or grant us the ability to do things that we feel are important. Maintain or strengthen critical programs. A lot of our efforts in the recent years have been focused in the world of health, but that's not the only area. When we talk about critical programs, finance, procurement, some of those central service operations, and anything that we deliver that's public facing. Fortify public safety, that's always on top of our mind, whether it be with law enforcement or the justice system, courts system, things like that. And we stay keenly focused on it. And then support the County Supervisors Association adopted legislative agenda. So we have representatives from our board that participate on the County Supervisors Association, Legislative Council, and we try to stay aligned with our peer jurisdictions throughout the state wherever we possibly can. Just tail of the tape, so to speak, the legislative session, right, began January 12th. I'm not going to go through all these items, and I sent Jeanette this slide deck this morning, so she'll pass it on to you. But these are sort of the milestone dates throughout the legislative session. We're in April now, surprisingly to me that we've moved that quickly through the first quarter of the calendar year. And so April 21st was the 100th day of the session. So they're moving along quite rapidly. Just some details. Today will be the 102nd day of the session. This year, there was another record-setting number of bills introduced into the legislature. There's over 2,100 bills that were submitted. And last year, I told you that it broke record when we were at the 1,700 mark in that 25 session. So, you know, we continue to see a great deal of activity, keeps the county busy, our lobbyists busy, and other jurisdictions throughout the state. So far, 32 bills signed by the governor, and you know, over a dozen bills that have been vetoed by the governor. So you know, they're moving towards trying to wrap things up. I don't have a good sense as to when that may occur, but could be later this month that they actually hit the conclusion of the session. As I've done in the past, I talked to Michael Rossi and said, hey, tell me what's happening really in the wastewater and the water space primarily. This year, not a lot of activity directly in wastewater. We were watching early on in the session some attempts again to limit the use of biosolids for agricultural purposes. Jackson was tracking that, as were other members of his team, and we reached out to Michael Rossi and said, hey, this is yet another attempt by the legislature to change what is authorized in terms of the disposal of biosolids. Our program is focused on agricultural uses, and so if that were to become prohibited, that would mean we would end up having to landfill them, and that would increase the cost of operations. I asked Michael what were some of the key bills around water. Obviously, you all are probably tracking, as I am, what's happening with the Central Arizona project water allocations. Lots of conversation going on. Seems to be little progress in terms of the user states in the Colorado Basin coming together on agreements as to how to better secure water supply for future uses. Lots of activity happening with respect to supplies in the lakes up north of us, and the state is having to act and make sure that certain steps are taken so that the water level doesn't drop down below the power generating level. And so we're keeping eyes on that. Michael had indicated to me that there were about 25 bills this legislative session that dealt with water across the state. There's just a sprinkling that I'm going to show to you here today. I'll move through it pretty quickly. That first one, 2096 House Bill, that authorizes the WIFA to go ahead and provide funding for closures and remediation of septic cesspools. Michael has indicated to me that Pima County already has that authority to seek funding and receive funding from WIFA for that purpose, but others in the state do not. And I'm not particularly familiar with the legislative history as to why that's the case, but that's what that bill is focused on. House Bill 2098 also is focused on financing from or through WIFA, and this allows for revenue bonds to be used for water projects and loan agreements to be utilized dealing with water management, storage, and treatment facilities. Moving along, House Bill 2985 is focused on allocation and management of CAP water. This one is focused on the Arizona State Land Department and how those allocations can occur relative to ASLD land in the state. House Continuing Resolution 2020 is focused on the housing shortage throughout the state and trying to expand the ability for the sale of housing outside of traditional water service areas, right, that have a demonstrated 100-year water supply. And so giving the ability through enrollment in the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District to increase the amount of housing developments that are made available for sale to help address some of the housing shortage issues that are happening across the state. And then on the Senate side, Senate Bill 1176, this is focused on the Phoenix active management area and is an attempt to allow or increase the allowance for 95% replenishment credits and the use of those credits to offset groundwater withdrawal within the same subbasin. And so this is, stormwater capture facilities that are constructed, states here, underground facilities. So increasing the amount of credits, long-term storage credits that are received for storing that water and the ability to reuse it to offset groundwater withdrawal. Senate Bill 1785 is focused again on recovery of stored water and basically recovery wells within active management areas. So some similarity in that it deals with the collection and storage of water and the removal or recovery of that water in active management areas. And then lastly, Senate Bill 1200 is looking at assured water supplies, again, specifically in the Phoenix AMA to address water availability challenges, right, dealing with development projects, generally relaxing or streamlining some of the modeling and credit requirements. So several of these bills have some similarity between the House side and the Senate side. That gives you just a little flavor. That's the last one that I was going to touch on, but happy to answer any questions either on things that I just touched upon or any other matters of interest regarding the state legislature. I know it's riveting stuff, right?
Well, it's really good to hear that there's nothing too threatening. It sounds like there's nothing too threatening this year that's making its way through.
No, I think we're in pretty good shape, Claire, and it takes a lot of effort. I will note that there is a new legislative coordinator position being developed within the county administrator's office. So this will be an on-staff resource that will work with our lobbyists. That classification, the job classification, was just sent to the board and approved. And so in addition to our contracted lobbyist resources, we will have an in-house resource working with our departments and our lobbyists and various interest groups. So in the future, we'll update you on who that individual is once they've been selected and start their role here at the county. All right. Well, thanks for inviting me back.
Thank you, Carmine.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care all.
Good to see you. All right, we'll move on to the safety issue of the day, Roger Road. We have Kimberly Baeza here for Permit Regulatory Compliance Officer to talk about Roger Road.
Just the slideshow going. Nope, over here. All right, there you go.
Okay. So very happy to be providing another update on the ongoing work at Roger Road. I think I was here about a year ago, and at the time we had started a second reuse planning effort. And we've made a lot of progress since then. This is a long-term project. I started working on the property in 2022. Work in the first 2 years was primarily coordinating with EPA, ADAQ, and their contractors to do environmental site assessments. In 2023, we finalized those, which confirmed what we had suspected, and that is that this 1950s era property had lead and asbestos. It is not surprising that was found. Fortunately, and I think it speaks very well to the stewardship of all the operators in its 50-plus industrial history, there was no soil contamination, which is wonderful, not only because that shows that, that we protected the environment, but also soil contamination is very costly to clean up. So we didn't find any of those. Let's see. So before I go on about all the work we've done in the past few years, I'll focus especially in the last year since the last update. I want to remind you how special this property is. And I know there's a lot of problematic things going on right now, but it is surrounded not only by the community now. When it was first built, it was very removed from the more densely populated areas, but now it is surrounded by communities. But also it has these exceptional ecological gems, like the longest flowing reach of the Santa Cruz River starts right there, and it was started by the Roger Road effluent. We have the Sweetwater wetlands, also started by Roger Road effluent, and a hotspot for wildlife, and other great amenities nearby. And so it has a very long history of human use. There's extensive archaeological evidence of farming and habitation. And that factored in, of course, into our clearances for the project, but thankfully the cultural clearance is already in hand. Another very cool feature that I have to mention is, this ribbon of cottonwoods and willows and aquatic habitat is a super important feature along the Pacific Flyway. And so we can associate all those great things to Roger Road. So really special property, and I hope more work is done there. Let's see. So I mentioned how you may remember, it seems like a very long time ago, but in 2021, Congress passed the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or IIJ, and that infused an unprecedented amount of funding into many federal programs, including brownfields, EPA brownfields. And so I started getting bombarded with emails about all the opportunities. Naturally, I looked into it and sent an email out of the cold to EPA regional office, got a response right away, and the assistance hasn't stopped flowing for the property. I mentioned the environmental phase 1 and phase 2 assessments we completed in 2023. They were valued at like $250,000. The following year, we did an initial reuse planning effort at over $50,000. And then in 2024, we were awarded an almost $500,000 cleanup grant that we're now implementing at the property. So this will fund the removal of the lead and asbestos found on many structures and buildings on the property. And we built on on the initial reuse planning report that was completed in 2024, we built on that last year by doing a more in-depth, more involved community engagement process that resulted in a reuse concept for the property. And this was a very effective, very appreciated by the community too, effort, because we were working with the Center for Creative Land Recycling. It's a national nonprofit that specializes in working with communities to return properties like Roger Road back to community use. And so we hosted 2 in-person workshops at the Elletown Flowing Wells Community Center. So that relationship with the Flowing Wells Neighborhood and Community Association was very important in drawing people, in making the in-person meetings well attended, and participation was great. The Santa Cruz Watershed Collaborative was also very useful, not only in the reuse planning process, but they were very helpful in the application for the cleanup grant that was successful, as I mentioned. What was cool about this reuse planning process, which CCLEAR, the Center for Creative Land Recycling, calls Vision to Action, was that we put out into the community 2 online surveys that had great participation, over 500 participants. And let me see. So as far as I know, this was the first community-informed reuse planning plan for this property, and participation was great. You know, this property, as Jackson was saying, has been idle for over 10 years. And if you're not biking on the loop or walking or using the Sweetwater wetlands, it's kind of tucked away and not known, unless, I guess, in the subculture criminal community. It's not very well known. So I was very blown away that people were so interested in participating, and they had so many great ideas, you know, about what it could be in the future. And this was the final concept we arrived at. And I say concept because this is not like a redevelopment plan that has to go through the board. And this is just an important tool we have now to do additional work on the property, from applying to grants or building on this even more to arrive at a final plan. But anyways, it was participation was great. We also had a lot of people, internal county staff, experts in many fields, in representing several departments, from flood control and economic development to conservation lands and resource, inform this process. And what stakeholders expressed very clearly was that they favored historic preservation and ecological restoration and responsible economic development, primarily activities, commercial activities that support the ecotourism industry, in like light retail, hospitality, things like restaurants and stuff like that. And I believe Jeanette shared that last year with the group, and we'd be happy to share that again if you're interested. Okay, but before we can dream big about what it could be and you know, make these plans or conceptual designs a reality, we have to clean it up. And like I said, we have almost a $500,000 grant to do the work. And we're now waiting for a final approval from EPA for our QAP, or Quality Assurance Project Plan. And essentially what that is it is a document required when you're going to take environmental samples. So you outline objectives, you spell out very clearly and concisely the samples you're going to take, where you're going to take them, the analyses you're going to do, because asbestos and lead-based paint abatement are a heavily regulated activity. And it should be. These are hazardous substances that shouldn't be released into the environment or communities. And so what will happen, once we get our QAP approved, and that is imminent, I'm hoping. We've submitted it twice and addressed their comments, so hopefully this time we get it approved. I have been warned. I have a few contacts, other grantees in Coconino County that I communicate with occasionally, and it took them a year to get their QAP through EPA QA/QC office. So hopefully it won't be that long. And hopefully we get the cleanup done this year. So there's going to be, most of the activities are probably going to be out of sight to most of us. You know, in the last 5 years, I know I've seen like asbestos remediation in buildings downtown. You see them like encapsulated with these sheets and it's very regulated to protect the public and the environment, of course. More close up, things look like this. You know, you have a negative air pressure machines, very controlled access and decontamination areas. And those negative air pressure machines, they're essentially a portable ventilation system similar to what you do at hospitals to contain the spread of pathogens. You just establish a similar system passing the air from inside through these HEPA filters and just drawing more air in than is being released out, essentially. And worker protections are very extensive. Workers tend to be very highly trained professionals that use wetting methods, and regardless of 110-degree heat, they're suited up in Tyvek suits and respirators to conduct this work. And so our abatement contractor is Spray Systems of America. They're based in Phoenix. They will do the actual removal. And we have a second contractor, Terracon, and they're going to be doing the oversight for the project. They're the third-party oversight for the project. And their responsibilities, in addition to preparing the QAP, is to ensure that all protocols, all procedures are followed to the T, to protect the workers and to protect the community. They'll also be doing extensive testing, and this is outlined in the QAP that we're hoping EPA approves soon. Extensive testing to ensure the cleanup is done, that the property is left in a clean condition, okay? And so abatement can be like encapsulating things in place, and then that requires continued upkeep. And we didn't select that for the obvious reason. This is not a facility that we visit or use very much. And so we're just removing everything. If no other work is done in the next 10 years and people just really go at it, destroying things, you know, at least materials will not be put out into the environment and endanger the community. So a very important next step for the property. I mentioned this, you know, there's extensive sample collections, extensive analyses of samples to ensure the work results in a clean property. There will likely be several waste streams from the project. There's a lot of metal components that'll be removed and sent to a recycler. With lead-based paint, it is an allowed thing to do, you know, to recycle metal. Some stuff may be sent to local landfills, and other stuff will probably end up in a landfill near Beatty, Nevada. That is the stuff like friable asbestos, the stuff that can easily, you know, be emitted into the atmosphere, and also the more heavily contaminated lead-based paint waste. And we want to, you know, we have already spoken with a contractor, and they know, you know, they're experts at what they do. It's very costly to ship waste as far away as Beatty, Nevada, excuse me. And so we're gonna be testing things as they're removing it to ensure that the stuff that can stay local is separated from the stuff that definitely needs to be shipped up north. Okay, and there's really exciting stuff on the horizon, after the cleanup is done. We will have shed, that stress of having these materials released to the ground, to the air. So that'll be a triumph. But this is part of a mural, this beautiful art you see here by the muralist Jessica Gonzalez and the Wilderness Society. And Rebecca's on the call. If you have questions about the mural, you can ask her. But it's this beautiful mural that they've already commissioned and have approvals to install it on a digester that faces the loop. And that digester has lead-based paint on the roof. We're just waiting to remove it to make it safe before installing this mural. So hopefully before the end of the year, this will be a reality there. But there's lots of, the federal funding landscape is pretty bleak right now, but it's not dry. And I've been talking to some staff at the flood control district that have a nature works program, and there may be very good opportunities to work with EPA brownfields on a job training grant. So I'm trying to loop them as much as possible and share with them so that we don't lose momentum and we do more on the property in coming years. Any questions?
If you look at the map, that mural is number 21 for those people that are looking.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's just north of the.
Yeah, visibility from the
Existing
loop
pond.
is very good. Yeah, and I forget the dimensions. It's like 120 feet or something.
And there was some talk about making that a performance space or some kind of space on top.
We can dream big still.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's very exciting. It's great to hear that this is
This is the
happening.
final draft.
Well,
Well,
the
it's
concept from the
concept.
reuse planning process we completed last year. Yeah, it's a concept.
It'd be nice to see something, because that's so small, I'd have to get out a microscope.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll send you that report, or Jeanette, we send out that report and you can, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's from
I'm
last year's
just wanted
presentation.
to see that one closer.
Yeah, and I can send you the full, it's very beautiful, what
Oh,
they're
yeah.
proposing to install. And so I have the renderings of those two that I can share if you like.
So mostly the contaminants are lead-based paint on the facilities. And
Yes.
then asbestos in the walls and
Yeah,
ceiling.
in a number of places, actually. Lead and asbestos were very common ingredients in many building materials up until the late 70s.
Mhm.
And so from insulation, fireproofing, and roof tiles and floor mastic, and of course, many colors of paint on the building have the lead. And it's on some walls, on some wood components. There's a lot on metal components, yeah.
But
And-
we got lucky and no ground contamination.
Yeah, and this was probably the largest industrial facility in the community for many, many years, and over 50 years of use. So it is really remarkable that there was no soil contamination. And again, it speaks very well about the people that worked there. They were doing good things. They were stewarding the property very well. So.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. Are there any questions for Kimberly regarding this is exciting news. So by this year, you mean by this time next year, we might be
I'm
talking.
hoping this fiscal year,
Oh,
in the next couple of months.
oh, really?
Yeah, so
Oh.
I mean, the approval from EPA could come today,
And if that happens.
but it could also,
Yeah.
be more, a few more weeks or a few more months.
And once you
I
get
don't
the
know.
approval, we're talking months of cleanup,
No.
not years.
Weeks of
Week.
cleanup.
We-
Yeah, the remediation contractor, they said, this is at most a month-long job for us. So what they do is they pull their staff from all over not only the state, but the region, and they just bring a ton of people, and get it done very quickly. And the contract gives them 45 days to complete the project. And they said, we'll probably not need it, but what may take a little longer and remains to be seen is getting analytical results back. Because before they take all their containment down, the samples, the laboratory results need to show this is a clean building. And you can now take out your containment, remove the isolation and all that stuff. It could be a couple of days or it could be a couple of weeks to do that.
And the cost will be fully covered by this grant?
Yeah. So the grant is around, it's 492,000 and change. The abatement contract is like just over $250,000. And then we have just under 100,000 for oversight. I forget the exact number for the cleanup contract. There may be a few change orders because since we awarded that contract, we have, because of the damage that the metal recyclers are doing, we have discovered a few other spots that had things we have to remediate. But fortunately, because the goal of the project is to leave a clean property, EPA is just lets us add additional things, and we have the money to do it. So it's great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Great news. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Oh, the fine line. So many pieces of paper here. There we go.
All right.
All right, moving on, we're gonna move item 6, the
Bless you.
financial right, we're gonna move item 6 up above item 4. So, Art, you have to wait a few more minutes and we'll move to Kirsten.
Well, thank you. Yes, the financial subcommittee met on April 6th, virtually first thing in the morning, first day of the week. And although Art did not have a new draft update for us, we were still operating with a previous draft that I think was from about March 10th. We had a very enlightening, I think, meeting, lots of good discussion. Art's group had been working hard to figure out how to structure the CIP and rate workbook, particularly with SRRF, the Santa Rita project, to avoid raising rate. And we had asked him to look at not just a 5-year outlook, but a 10-year outlook that goes along with the larger CIP. So we could see what was happening with that larger debt in the out years. At that time, he reported that the Pima County administration was not showing a lot of desire to increase wastewater rates or to accept a 25-year amortization of the specifically at Santa Rita project debt, which I'll remind the rest of the committee that the standard time frame for debt is 15 years. So with that, he reported that he and his group were running 2 straw man thought exercise rate workbooks to see what would happen if a rate increase nor a 25-year amortization was acceptable. And with that, the thought experiment scenarios that they were running, one was to reduce the RWRD CIP projects somewhat over the next 5 years to allow the SURF projects and other CIP debt to remain at just that 15 year amortization. Thought experiment, it was just cutting some large percentage of as yet unidentified CIP projects to see what would happen. Another scenario was to reduce all of the RWRD CIP projects for the next 5 years to allow only the Santa Rita projects and the CIP debt to have 15-year amortization. He did not present the results of that. That was thought experiments that he was starting to prepare this group was prepared, but that was the concept. But I should note that the discussion said that doing those two scenarios was admittedly not readily feasible for the department, severely reducing or completely reducing CIP projects. But it was just to demonstrate how difficult it would be to have neither 25-year amortization nor a rate increase for the entire county. The financial subcommittee members that were in attendance were supportive of a 25-year amortization of the Santa Rita debt rather than potentially raising wastewater rates. There was more support among us to do that 25-year. The conversation then moved on to discussing a little bit about the Santa Rita participation and the DMA change that is happening. Since the town of Santa Rita, it was originally going to fund 25% of the SRRF, and that's where some of this lack of funding is coming from. The DMA is now being renegotiated between the town and PAG and Pima County. That is in process. And part of that negotiation is to give Pima County some of the new development area that will have potentially new rate payers to help fund Santa Rita program and projects. That DMA revision is still being renegotiated with PAG involvement. The town does want to reserve an option for far into the future to have an interconnect sewer over to the Santa Rita facility to shunt flows at some point, at which point there would be a negotiation about paying for that, basically shunting of flows in that capacity. But that is not any kind of funding that's on the table for the department now. So an action item that came forth was the committee asked for when that DMA map and those agreements get finalized through the PAG 208 process for that to be given to this committee as background information. And that would be additional background to the summary that we had talked about the previous one that Jaime is preparing about some of the elements of the program not needing extra funds. And I won't go into that detail because that's on the books as an action item. The next thing that happened was another thought experiment was put out there to potentially stretch the time frame of that Santa Rita program, the $320 million expenditures, by delaying specifically the treatment plant design and construction piece just a few years, about 3 years, so that it expand not be all done in 5 years, but to stretch it out in 8, so that the peak would be a little bit flatter. You have the interceptor peak first, and then the treatment plant peak second. Jaime mentioned that to do that, there would potentially need to be some repairs at the Green Valley just to extend its life another 5 years or whatever it would take in order to do that. Didn't know what the cost of that would be at that time. Aeration being one of the big things, and was going to look potentially into that and kind of give that to Art as a potential scenario to run, because we're just trying to figure out how to fund the whole thing reasonably for everybody. There was a fourth scenario, which was brought up by the director, and he was with us only for a very short amount of time, and that was potentially to reduce the size of the Santa Rita water reclamation facility, sorry, can't say it straight, but from 8 MGD to 6 MGD in this near term. Again, numbers hadn't been run for that, noting that a cost savings would not be reducing it, as much as a capacity, but maybe 15, 20 total speculation of what that cost savings in the near term might be. So with that, it was left that the financial subcommittee, the financial subcommittee would wait to hear about these 4 scenarios and further negotiations and discussions, which they had not had a chance to do with the Pima County Administration, the Deputy County Administrator Carmine, and the County Administrator Lesher, and even the Board of Supervisors members. Art did mention that a presentation of the Board of Supervisors about the overall draft Pima County budget had gone forward on March 24th. And he mentioned that the budget for the including the SURF program, Pima County's budget is about 54% of the overall Pima County budget. And noting also that a tentative schedule to get the rate workbook and everything finished and for the Board of Supervisors is towards the end of May. That's the need of the county. We got to get through this process somehow by then. So with that, it was just left finding out what's going on with those scenarios, whatever is happening with the further negotiations. And I look forward to Art's report of what's happened in the last 3 weeks. But that brings everybody, I think, up to date as to what we know on the committee. But no new rate workbook was presented to us. None of the outcomes of these scenarios as yet has been presented to us.
Thank you, Kirsten. That's an excellent summary. Appreciate you taking the time and effort to do that, Erica. So,
Just one more addition, I think, that needs to be represented. In the original workup for the SRFF plan, that was done with a Corollo study. But you have updated that with another study by RLB. And that gives you a little tighter numbers on the cost. And that has not been shared with us at this point.
We haven't, we will.
With ROV, but I guess the cost estimate. Yeah.
all right. At this point, we'll move on to item number 4, which the director, Art Cron and Michelle Milensky will provide maybe some of the answers to these questions and financial plan review. And budget
Thank
requests as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
In the room? Okay, good. I know there's been times where I haven't been audible, so I want to make sure that you guys can hear me. So I think Ms. Wangsvik gave a really good overview of our last committee meeting. We have received to date the updated numbers from Jaime and his team on the stretching the project out. What we have not yet received is the updated numbers from the reduction in the size of the facility. So I think we were promised those numbers at some point this week. So we are still waiting for the reduction in the numbers to plop that number into the rate workbook and see what that reduction in size does to the overall numbers. I do want to note, and I think Jackson made a point relative to this point last our finance subcommittee meeting, and that is it's not going to be a dollar for dollar drop in the cost of the facility. So, just because we're reducing the size from 8 to 6 doesn't mean that you're going to get that representative drop in the construction of the facility. We will see some, but very likely not, dollar for dollar. So it is still going to be a pretty big number, I would guess. But we continue to wait for those numbers back from the consultant. And when we do that, we'll have hopefully all of the scenarios that we could encapsulate during this rate workbook planning session. Right, we do have the template updated. We're just waiting for final decisions from all of the stakeholders on which way we go, and we're obviously waiting on those final numbers on the reduction in size. So we are teed up for the rate workbook and the financial plan when we get those numbers, and then we'll be coordinating with Jeanette and the team to get back to both the finance subcommittee. I think we have something on the calendar for early May, and then bringing that back to the full committee after the finance subcommittee has had an opportunity to review. But that's the status of the financial plan. I'll pause there for any additional questions before we give a very, very high level brief overview of the wastewater budget for 26-27.
Yeah, I have a question. Are you also looking at doing both of those things or some combination of all these thought experiments? I mean,
Stretch it out and reduce the size.
and reduce the size and cut out some CIP. I mean, like, are you doing, it seems like they're pretty right now in boxes for ways to proceed.
Scenario 5 is a combo plan. You want a full meal deal, Art?
I don't know if you're looking at that, but if you have a
So-
target, pulling some
so
of these
I
things together
will-
might help.
That's a good question. At this point, a combination of the scenarios that we've run have not been contemplated. In terms of combining all of the scenarios, so maybe a slowdown with a reduction in size, but keeping all of the other CIP, for example, we're not running that type of scenario at this point. As I mentioned in the finance subcommittee, I don't know how feasible it is for the department to stop all of its other CIP projects for the Santa Rita facility. So that was just something that again, it's a thought exercise. And so I don't know that that's a feasible, because much of these projects are already in production or already in construction. So stopping that might not be really a feasible item, but it
Right.
is something that I needed to demonstrate to county admin as we're exploring avenues to accomplish the goals of the department and the county, while also making sure we're being financially sustainable and financially prudent in doing so without raising additional rates before we really need to, and before we committed to the board not to raise rates. So it's a fine line, it's a balancing act, and I'm certainly happy to take that back, but I think we should probably wait and see what the outcomes of the sort of the slow progression into the construction, and then combine that with the reduction in the size. I think that'll be a meaningful number, but not, again, dollar for dollar. So good question. And I see
Yeah.
Matt has his hand up.
Hey,
Yeah,
Art,
thank
this is
you.
Jackson. I just wanted to remind everyone of something I said last time we were talking on this subject. And, this project is gonna ebb and flow this way and that way from here till its completion. And I don't want to be reactive that, we get some more information and all of a sudden we revise our numbers in the model. And a few months later, we need to go back another direction. It'll look like we're out to sea without a rudder or something here. And so I suggest or recommend that we pick maybe 3 strategic, before we actually get the final bid documents that, here's what it's gonna cost to build it. Of course, that has contingency and it will be plus or minus, but it will be very close at that point. But, and I'll allude to Jaime's expertise as well, but I'm thinking, once we get like the first 30% design from our design professionals, then we know what size we're building. We know what technology we're using. We're now at the time where we know what the market construction rates are, up or down or wherever they may be. And so I would think like at the 30, 60, and then the final, that's where we could make adjustments, on the rate workbook, the input for the capital. Something like that, unless Jaime has a different recommendation, but let's not well, we're gonna meet and talk and we're gonna now, and the subcommittee has a thought and a recommendation, because I think we'll just look back, because we may go this way, then we'll go back the other way, and I think we just need to pick, maybe 3 milestone timings along the project to say, here's what it is now, the latest update, here's the second one, and here's the final one. Plus or minus how a project finishes on budget and schedule, all that. So
Right.
That's my recommendation.
Yeah, we don't want to micromanage this. This is a really complex.
Yeah, and it's like, it's great to play with these scenarios, and again, our crystal ball is not perfect. It's a cloudy, opaque glass there, and it'll give us some refinements or opinions. And we're excited because we want to do it on paper to show, look, we don't need rates, or yeah, we're okay up to this point. But really, we don't know, because then very shortly it can change the other direction. So let's get where it's at reasonable target milestones on the project where it's the most meaningful, and make, those adjustments if and when it's appropriate to do so. That's my recommendation.
Matt, did you have a question or a comment?
Yes, thanks, Claire and Art. Art, in the past, we've seen, I think, earlier in the process, a draft of the financial plan that had a lot more to it. Some historical background information and such, a lot more to it than just the rate workbook. Is that draft in development to a point where you could share what's in it now to kind of give us a head start on that part of this process? Or do we need to wait for some of these options to settle out before we even get to that point?
That's a good question. I do think that we have, or we could update the parts of the financial plan that are not necessarily contingent on the rate workbook. Because it does have, there's some language in there. But we also need to know what the assumptions are that we're building into the next, at least the next year, and then moving out, right? So, I'm happy to share what we have, but I don't know that the committee or the finance subcommittee would take much out of it, because so much of it is dependent on what we're doing with the next iteration of the rate workbook. So, I'm happy to share the template, or I guess for lack of a better word.
Okay. So would you like to move on to the next part of your presentation unless there are other questions?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk through the high, at a high level, the budget. Let me see if I can
Okay.
share my screen. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, so the presentation that we have highlights two different top agenda items. One is the budget update. If I need to make it bigger, let me know, because I know what the screen looks like in that room.
Thank you.
So the first, I'm gonna talk through the budget at a high level, and then I'm gonna turn it over to David Stickley and the finance, the departmental analysis team to walk through the period 9 forecast summary as they traditionally do. So when we look at the budget for FY 26-27, comparatively to 25-26. We're seeing about a $4.8 million increase in revenues. This is driven.
Art, I hate to interrupt, but could you make it just a wee bit bigger? We can't see the numbers very well.
Eat some carrots.
Ah,
That's good.
that's
That is
great.
good.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so it cut off on my screens, so I'm gonna have to see what I can do to talk about the stuff at the bottom. So on the revenue side, again, you're seeing 192.7 in the 26 budget. That's increasing to 197.6 in the 27 recommended. This is driven really by two different categories. We're seeing about a $2.5 million increase in connection fees, and then interest increase of about 1.7. We continue to see interest rates hover at rates that we maybe didn't expect. So those are the largest two categories that are driving that rate revenue increase. We do have some small biogas revenue increase of about 250,000, and then sewer and sanitation fees at about 50,000, which makes up that $4.8 million increase in our revenues. And this is that goes to partially offset about an $8.4 million increase in expenses. Part of this is a adjustment for the 1.4% a compensation adjustment that the board gave this fiscal year. And so you might want to know how that 1.4 impacts 26, 27. And that is because when we were contemplating the 25-26 budget, we gave 1.4% in January, which only covered, and the 26 budget only covered the first 6 months of that year. So the 26-27 budget needed to contemplate the balance of that, and that number is reflected in that 8.4. Also reflected in that 8.4 is a 3% market adjustment that is included in the 26-27 recommended budget. That's a county-wide market adjustment, so that will impact all county employees. But the wastewater, the wastewater, the impact of the wastewater fund is included in that $8.4 million. It does also include a $3 million supplemental adjustment that the department in Jackson requested and subsequently were given for 26-27. So that's 3 million of that number. And then there are also a little over $4 million, $4 million for ITD rates. We did include an amount for inflation. This was an across the board adjustment for anybody that impacted electric rates. So we know that TEP has asked for, I think it's a 14% increase. And I don't know that we've gotten a number back on that, but there are several challenges to that 14%. I think we included 7% increase in the 26-27 budget. So wastewater was a benefactor of that, along with like facilities and anybody who has electric or paying electric bills for their buildings in the 26-27 budget. So that number is increased there. We also have increases in our risk management internal service funds, county overhead funds, as well as Jackson's favorite, depreciation did increase by about $2.9 million. So that comprises the 8.4 million. I believe the $3 million supplemental adjustment was all in operation and maintenance. So I think it's in chemicals and a few other line items. Jackson can talk more in depth or in detail about that, but that was included in the 26-27 budget from the county administration perspective. We do have a small decrease in our transfers out. This is really related to the ERP portion of the COPS debt service that wastewater pays. So that's a positive thing. And then we just included here a small an FTE count. Looks like in the budget, Jackson is reducing his FTE count by close to about 2.5 FTEs. So with that, that's at a high level. That's what's in the recommended budget. So I will pause for any questions or allow Jackson to interject where he may feel necessary.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I'll just wait and see what questions or discussion we have.
Does anybody have discussion or questions that they would like to bring forward? I think your explanation is very good. And we have to just, trust the experts. Yeah. Did you say that? Any comments here today? Cool. All right. So that's the adopted budget or budget request. And so that's it. Thank you so much. I appreciate your
Art.
time.
Thanll you guys. Appreciate it. You're in great hands with David Stickley. I think that's the next agenda item, or maybe, I don't know if you want to take it. I'll leave it to the board, but thank you for your time. I'll turn it over to Stickley and his team. It's good to see you all, and I look forward to our next meeting.
Yeah, thank you so much for all your efforts. I know you're.
Thank you, Art. I do want to just clarify really quick that we have not yet been able to find a date for the financial subcommittee meeting that everybody can attend. So that is still pending. So we don't have it scheduled yet, Art. Sorry.
Must have been another meeting on my calendar.
But still working on it. Still working on it.
Thank
you.
David, you're gonna have to share your screen because I'm gonna.
I've been trying.
All right,
Okay,
we'll move
let me-
on to David Stickley on the period 9 expense and revenue summary.
Sure, if you can just bear with me for a moment, I'm going to pull up the presentation so I can share, so Art can move on. Okay, can you see this?
No.
Not yet.
Would you like me to bring it up, David?
Um, I've got it up. I just need to make sure I'm
Oh, there it
sharing the
comes.
correct.
Go ahead. I'll hang out. I'll hang out.
Okay, well, this will be fairly brief, anyway. I think, committee members, as you recall from last month, the period 8 forecast was a deep dive, that we did across all departments within the county in order to come up with a very realistic, expectation about the outcome for the fiscal year. And in period 8, wastewater, we did some adjustments to their forecast. And what period 9 is demonstrating to us is that it is validating the accuracy of the period 8 forecast. That's kind of a long way of saying not a whole lot has changed. There's been some revisions, known and measurable. They've been fairly immaterial. On the expense side of the house, you'll see that there's about a $636,000 projected savings compared to the adopted budget. Last month, it was $594,000. So it's about $40,000 better to that end. Part of the ability to have that savings is geography within the individual cost elements. Personnel services, there's a significant savings. There's 33 vacancies at the moment. That's been kind of a perpetual number, but we've been able to harvest the savings there in order to cover some unknown and unplanned expenses that have come up. On the revenue side, you can see there's a $3.3 million shortfall. That is directly related to the biogas revenue that Jackson covered earlier. So essentially, what we're seeing is a continuation of the analysis and the trend that we saw last month. Credit rating ratio has gone from 134 to 133, and that's still above budget. The good news, the thing that I would like to emphasize is that variance of 636,000 on the expense side of the house turns out to be about 0.3% of the budget, so that it's a really, I would say it's a very impressive ability to manage and utilize the resources that are given without actually going over the budget. So I know that working with a budget in an organization as large as Wastewater, that kind of precision in their performance is pretty impressive. So that's a basic overview of where we're at. I can answer any questions that the committee might have.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for David? No? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation.
Thank
We'll
you.
move on to we had the financial subcommittee report. Do you have you don't have anything else to add to that?
No, other than me that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still okay.
Okay. And then the CIP subcommittee report is vacant.
All right,
Not
so
anymore.
last month I requested people to, volunteer for the committee and to give me their nominations so we could elect a new chair. And I'm proud to say that Craig Canizaro is the new chair of the CIP subcommittee. So yay, Craig. And also one change is Miss Claire Zucker has moved from the financial subcommittee to the CIP subcommittee, and Sheila and Catlow have joined the financial subcommittee. So both subcommittees are full up.
Great. Awesome.
So
It's time for me
do
to.
you want to say anything, Craig?
No, I guess we didn't have one last one. So
Nope, we haven't had one yet.
looking forward to the next one.
Great. Okay, and I have an announcement also about the Citizen Water Advisory Committee. So as you are familiar, that committee actually has a member that sits on this committee, and it has been vacant
September.
since September, yeah, maybe even, we knew even before then.
No, September is when he told us.
That's when he
September
told us.
25th.
So we've struggled on that, and yet I'm going to both committee meetings. And so I had the thought that I would resign from Ward 3 and become the CWAC representative here, so that my who I represent is different. And I have not yet spoken to Jennifer Allen about that, Ward 3, because we were working on the paperwork, but they did request that I move, to have me as that person, and that does solve that problem of having that representation, and gives Ward 3 another opportunity for a new person. So,
But if you do both, can you have 2 votes in there?
well, I
No.
didn't feel comfortable being their representative if
You can only
if I-
be
if I
represent
would-
one.
Yeah, so I was sort of placeholding, and it didn't feel right, but
And can Claire still be, chair?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can still.
But we will also be having the annual elections
Mhm.
coming up before too long too, so, but
So that's where that fit. And so now I have to take this responsibility of reporting back and forth a little more seriously. So I made notes. Let's see, so at the last meeting of the Wednesday, April 1st CWAC meeting, they always go the same way, where there's a director's report and so forth. And one of the things they mentioned was that March 17th, they had, mayor and council approved a 60-day public hearing for a rate increase change. And that public hearing is scheduled for May 19th. So I don't have information about where it is at this point, but if you need any of that information, would like to attend, May 19th is the public hearing for that. He also mentioned that the Pima County billing arrangement has been extended for a year. The services have been extended for 1 more year as they sort out. It's been a challenging administrative battle to try and work out the
The city council just approved it, and it will go to the board very soon,
okay.
on the 27th,
27.
I believe it is.
Yeah. And then there was a presentation from there is always a presentation on the Colorado River. That happens every time. As you're aware, we are facing historic lows, mainly because of higher air temperatures. It's drier, there's less runoff, there's more sublimation. Lake Mead is at 34%, or was at that time, with 8.9 million acre feet, and Lake Powell is at 25% at 5.189 million acre feet. They do still say that Tucson Water is much better positioned than most counties, and that's largely because of the amount of water that we have stored in the aquifer here. But I do sense it's becoming more and more concerning. There is more talk about utilizing stormwater, for example, as a drinking water source, which was not something that was ever considered before. So we will probably be having some pretty robust discussions about One Water, about how we can defray our usages of water by using potable water, groundwater, by using stormwater and reclaimed water.
That was one of the ones I saw Carmine put up on the legislative agenda, was the 95% credit for stormwater recharge up in the Phoenix area, so.
Right, and they also had a presentation at CWAC by their new representative, Laura Dent. And so I thought that was interesting that you now have county now has an internal person looking at the legislative agenda, as well as the lobbyists. And Laura Dent is the city of Tucson's person, and particularly working with water. She's great. She did an excellent presentation, and they were all just saying how great she was. So that's good to know that there's representation up there. A lot of the water bills mentioned by Carmine were also mentioned by her. And so, but there were some others that they had as well. So in particular, I think I made notes somewhere. I don't know where I put that, but several of the bills were also being watched. So I think you got a pretty nice overview of that from Carmine today, and those are some of the same bills. So that's
you.
sort of all of the update from that and from my representation on the committee. All right, next, future agenda items. Well, I suppose we need to have a more robust discussion of these thought experiments and how they're working out.
So for May, we have, Jackson will be providing a personnel and KPI update, open meeting law, and election of officers, as well as the regular financial summary. We can include in there, continuing discussion on the financial.
Yeah, I think we need to have that again. To see where things are. And it's interesting that the DMA is being renegotiated, and I believe PAG is scheduled in the fall, but perhaps we need to have that presentation a bit earlier if things come around on that.
Well, we have to know about it first.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes,
We'll
but
put definitely.
that is
I'll
something
make a
that
note to, DMA discussion when it becomes.
when it becomes possible. And last year, when we put all those together, we were really full, so it might be nice to pull one of those off. All right, any other future agenda items? All right, we'll go to item J, which is call to the audience. Any audience members like to raise their hands and say something stirring for us? No? Okay, then we'll move for adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'm making a motion to adjourn.
Great. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, well, thank you all very much for attending and being part of this committee, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Too many papers. There's too many papers.
Well, quit putting agenda items.